Hello friends and welcome. Welcome to my kitchen. A little bit different for a Wild Spirit video today. I decided to bring you into my kitchen and talk a little bit about diet, something that I do to help my diet and help the environment. If you have been listening to our podcasts, you know, episode 12 was about diet and how your diet can help the environment, but we also touched on how it helps your health. Diet is an important thing for both issues, health and the environment. So today I decided to bring you into my kitchen and show you how to make kombucha. Kombucha is something that I drink. It replaces the carbonated soft drinks that a lot of people drink. I've never been a big fan of carbonated soft drinks, but this will actually show you how to make a replacement for that. If you do drink carbonated soft drinks, you hopefully know that they are not good for you. They're loaded with sugar, chemicals, probably palm kernel oil, which is terrible for the environment, the way that they're growing and harvesting it. They cut down rainforests for it, but I won't get onto that. Listen to our podcast, episode 12, wildspirit.org/podcast. So how do you get away from those soft drinks that are not good for the environment and not good for your health? They contribute to obesity. Well, kombucha. Okay, so we're going to learn how to make kombucha. This is my homemade kombucha. I used to buy kombucha in the store, and now I learned how easy it is to make my own. Thank you to my brother for introducing me to the process of making it. And a lot of YouTube videos too helped me. So I decided to make my own YouTube video to show you how I make my kombucha. Kombucha, the benefits. First of all, it is carbonated, it is sweet, so it is like a soft drink, and that's why I say it's a replacement for it, but it's a healthy replacement. It is working with bacteria. Now, whenever you hear the word bacteria, you think, oh, terrible, bad stuff. No, there's actually good bacteria too. We need bacteria in our gut to help us to digest our food. You get bad bacteria in there and you get sick. Which is, side note here, make sure all your equipment is always sterilized, clean. I washed my hands before I even start doing kombucha. I make sure my countertops are clean. I make sure all my equipment is clean. There have been cases of people getting sick from drinking kombucha. It's almost always homemade kombucha because they didn't clean their equipment first. So always make sure everything is clean. Bad bacteria gets in there and it grows. But this is good bacteria that's growing in here. So this is good for digestion. And this has been scientifically proven too. It's not just hearsay. Or not just someone say, oh yeah, I drank kombucha and it cured me of this. No, there are those claims out there, but scientific data has shown kombucha is great for digestion. It's adding good bacteria to your digestive system and it helps. It also helps build immunity, scientifically proven, and it also helps boost energy. There have been claims of it helping with things like diabetes, cancer. Other claims are out there, and they're still doing a lot of research. A lot of those claims have not been proven. They could be in the future. So kombucha is a great replacement and a healthy replacement. Now, I do want to go through the equipment that I'm going to be using that you will need if you are going to start making kombucha. And the other thing we are going to show you is how, or I am going to show you is how to actually make the kombucha step by step. I will be fast forwarding through some of the tedious processes. I don't want this video to be an hour long, so, but you'll get all the information you need. So the equipment you need. And by the way, when you buy your equipment, I got most of my stuff from Amazon. Please, if you're going to be shopping on Amazon, go to smile.amazon.com and choose Wild Spirit Education as your favorite organization to donate to. All the money from your purchases, a portion of the money that you spend on your purchases comes to Wild Spirit as a donation. So smile.amazon.com. If you are a big Amazon shopper, please start using Smile. I use it all the time. Wild Spirit does get some good money from smile.amazon. So the equipment you need, first of all, you will need 1 gallon glass jars or jugs, if you want to call them. You need to start out with 2. I have 3 because I'm going to be showing you how to do a double batch. I recommend you only start out with single batch. Once you learn the process, then you can always split your SCOBY. We'll talk about that in a little while. And you can start doing a double batch. I do a double batch because 1 bottle, 1 gallon of kombucha is good for me for a week. But my wife drinks it too. And so between the 2 of us, we go through about 2 gallons of kombucha each week. So that's why I have a double batch going. So I will show you the process for a single or double batch. So 2 gallon jars, glass jars. You will need bottles. Get a high quality bottle. I watched a video of a guy making kombucha, how to make kombucha. He always said during the fermentation process, the second fermentation, every morning he would get up and he would burp his bottles. He said that the reason he does that is because pressure is building up in here. That's what causes the fizziness. And he said so much pressure built up, he had some bottles explode. And I'm like, wow, that's scary. I talked to my brother who introduced me to making kombucha, and he says, really? He's been doing it for years, and he's never had a bottle explode. That's because he gets good quality bottles. So good quality bottle, don't go for the cheapest. I have 12 bottles here. Each gallon will make 6 bottles of kombucha. You can get 7 out of it, but I don't like to push it. I usually do only 6. It has a rubber stopper on the top, and it has a little lever here that locks down tight. Okay, keeps that fizz in there. Okay, helps with the fermentation. So good quality bottles, you want to get at least 6 per batch that you're going to make. And I actually have more. I have 12 that I'm showing here, but I actually have more than 12 in case I don't finish them all off in a week. I have extras to go. I actually have 6 bottles sitting in the refrigerator right now, including this one here. So get at least, usually they come in a case of, I think it's 6 bottles. So get at least a couple of cases, even if you're making just 1 batch. If you're making 2 batches, I recommend getting 3. You want a funnel, good size funnel, plastic. Do not use metal. Try not to use metal, especially you don't want metal touching your SCOBY. Okay, SCOBYs don't like metal. And I'll talk what a SCOBY is in a minute. You will need a rubber band. You will need a piece of cloth. This is about 6 inches by 6 inches. That's just to keep the dust out of this while it's fermenting. You don't want to use plastic, you want it to breathe. You will want some tea. Now, someone told me once that you need the caffeinated tea. Me and caffeine don't mix. Okay, I do not do well with caffeine. It gives me the jitters. So they said you needed caffeinated tea or the SCOBY would not work and you would not be able to make kombucha. So I started doing that and it did not do me well. So I decided, you know, I always drink decaf tea, so I'm going to try it with decaffeinated. I did some more research and I found, yeah, decaffeinated is fine. So either decaffeinated or caffeinated. I use green tea. Okay, you can use the black tea, but I use a green tea, and I try to get organic too. So I always try to buy organic with everything. Listen to the podcast that'll explain why. I use a natural sugar. You will need some sugar with this. So yes, unfortunately there is sugar in it. Helps with the fermentation. I like fresh fruit. I have some blueberries here. I have some cherries, and I have some strawberries. All of these were frozen, so they're picked fresh, frozen. And I take them out of the freezer when I'm ready to use them for my kombucha. You will also need, and behind me there's a couple of kettles on the stove. Those are boiling some water. And the most important ingredients, and this is the part that grosses out my wife. you will need a SCOBY. Okay, this is what we call a SCOBY. Okay, a SCOBY stands for Symbiotic Culture of Bacteria and Yeast. Okay, SCOBY. Symbiotic Culture of Bacteria and Yeast. The SCOBY is what makes your kombucha. Without the SCOBY, you're just drinking flavored tea. That's it. So where do you get a SCOBY? You can actually find SCOBYs on Amazon.com. When I first started, my brother gave me a SCOBY for a birthday gift. That was my birthday gift last year. And he actually had it sent through Amazon. It comes in a sealed plastic container, and it came with instructions, and I bought the jars and everything. You can buy the whole kit too if you want, but you can get them, or if you have a friend who makes kombucha. SCOBYs grow. That's how I got my second SCOBY. I split my first one, put it into here. It's very thick in here. You can see from the side here how thick my SCOBY is. These are both ready to be split, and I actually have a friend who's coming over sometime next week when I make kombucha, and she is going to take one of my SCOBYs from me. So I will split it for her. She'll take half, I'll keep the other half, and it'll grow. Okay, so yeah, that's where you can get a SCOBY. If you have a friend who makes kombucha, get a SCOBY from them. Otherwise, you can buy SCOBYs. Okay, so here we are at my stove. Like I said, I'm doing a double batch here, so you can see I have two pots going of hot water. So I don't fill them all the way, just, you know, this is a smaller pot that's about halfway, this is maybe a quarter of the way. You don't need a lot of water in here. It's going into your gallon jug. And you don't want to put the hot water right in that gallon glass jug because it will crack. That's why I had a third of the jug filled with cold water. Now these have been on the stove for a little while, so they are, you know, pretty hot. I'm going to take my tea bags, and I put 6 tea bags in each one of these. Okay, and as I was saying, I use decaffeinated green organic tea. Once that is in there, you know, just gently make sure it starts brewing. I usually brew mine for about 5 minutes, and then I add the sugar. So originally, my kombucha recipe said to use a cup of sugar per batch. I have cut back to, for healthy reasons, once again, this is an organic sugar, natural organic sugar, cane sugar. So I use about 3/4 of a cup of sugar now. My brother has transitioned to honey in his kombucha. So he said don't do it all at once. He says if you are transitioning over to honey, make sure that you do it just a little bit at a time. You don't want to shock the kombucha. So I have that sugar in there. You have to make sure it dissolves all the way. And as I said, I will let this brew for about 5 to 10 minutes. So this is going to be sitting on the stove, and I'll come back every once in a while and I'll start stirring this up. Okay, so my tea brewed for about 10 minutes. The sugar is dissolved, and I removed the tea bags from it. Now, I didn't squeeze the tea bags out, I just let them drain, and I put the tea bags in my compost. But so now I have tea with sugar. Sugar's all dissolved. I let this cool a little bit. In this jar, okay, my spare gallon jug, I have about 1/3 full of cold water. The only reason that I do that is so that when I pour this liquid in, I could let this cool even more, but I usually do it while it's still lukewarm, and I don't want the hot water cracking the glass. That's the only reason that I do this. And normally I'm doing this over my sink, in my sink, And the reason I do that is because it can be messy. I only got a little bit off, so not bad. I'm doing it in my counter just for demonstration so I can show you. Now, this is ready for my SCOBY, but I am going to fill this up a little bit more with some colder water. I don't want to shock my SCOBY. My SCOBY is at a little above room temperature, so when I add it to here, I want it to be a little bit cooler. Okay, so I'm going to put some more. Okay, so I added a little bit more water to this. I didn't add a whole lot. I want to make sure I have enough room for the SCOBY, and if this is your first batch, you can fill it all the way up to about here. But if it's not, you're going to use what's left over in here to add to here. So you're actually enhancing the culture from growing. I've read, I haven't tried it yet, but I have read that if you don't have a SCOBY, but you do have some kombucha, you can actually just put the kombucha in there and the SCOBY will start growing from that. I haven't tried it, but I have heard that you can do that. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take your SCOBY, and it's kind of slimy, you know, some people don't like the feel of it. Remember, I did wash my hands. You can actually see that it can be split right now. Okay, so I could split this, and I will be doing that and giving it to a friend soon. I just place the SCOBY in there. Okay, now, like I said, if this was my very first batch, I would fill this up to about here. You don't want it all the way up to the top. You want to fill it up to about this level here. But since this is not my first batch, and I'm making some more, I'm going to be adding the leftovers from here into here, and I'll show you that in a little while. So now this, if it was my first batch, I would cover this up, put this on, and it's ready to ferment. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But we're going to move on now to the second stage. After this is done fermenting, and you let it ferment in a warm place for a week. I usually put mine in my utility room, my laundry room, and the only reason is it's a fairly consistent temperature in there. In the winter time, that's where my furnace is, so it's nice and warm. My brother was telling me in the winter, he usually puts his next to his heater, his baseboard heater, and that adds a little more warmth to it so that the SCOBY can ferment, or your kombucha can ferment a little bit quicker. But you want to let it sit here for an entire week to let it ferment. If you have trouble keeping track of that, put it on your calendar, you know, whatever. I make Wednesdays my kombucha day. So every Wednesday, I know that it's been sitting there a week, it's ready to go, and that's when I do all my work. Okay, so after your kombucha has sat there fermenting for an entire week, now it's time to go into the secondary fermentation. I do know of some people who skip this with adding flavors to it, and they basically have a kombucha tea, just plain old flavored tea. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a flavor to ours. And there's different flavors you can add. Look online for recipes. I like fruit kombuchas. My brother does some herbs with his too. And there's different methods of doing this. So I have some fresh frozen fruits here. These are blueberries, and I just simply add them to the jar. My brother will actually take his fruits, and he makes, I believe he makes, that one's gonna have to be cut. I believe he makes an entire batch the same flavor. So he uses a juicer. So he will actually take his juicer and he will juice it. So you can see I added a bunch of blueberries to the bottom there. And add some more to this one. Another one needs to be cut. So I will take the bigger ones, cut them in half. And we'll probably do 2 bottles of blueberry here. And I've got some fresh strawberries. I've got some black cherries. And I'm going to just fast forward through those in a minute. But I want to show you how I do some of the other flavors too. Okay, now this is organic, fresh squeezed orange juice. You can squeeze your own oranges, I found that's a pain in the neck, so I don't do it. And I usually just do about a 1/2 inch on the bottom of my bottle. Okay, now I use... Now I have my jars are filled with the fruits. I have some orange kombucha, I've got some pineapple kombucha, strawberry kombucha, I've got some, it looks like black cherry, no, these are the black cherries, sorry. Those are blueberry, and I did a black cherry strawberry. Yes, don't be afraid to experiment, you know, different flavors, mix them together. I've done pineapple orange before. I've done a lot of different combinations. So you can go online and look for different recipes for kombucha. Now the next step, this gets a little bit messy here. I'm gonna move these bottles over. Remember, I'm doing a double batch here, so you're gonna only have to do 6 bottles. I'm doing 12. Make sure you have your clean plastic funnel. This is the fermented kombucha. So this is what has sat for an entire week in a nice warm place. And I took the SCOBY out, I put into my new batch. So this is going to sit for a week. And I take this and I just pour it in here. And I wait for that to get just about up to where, right about there, right where the bottle flares in. And then I cap it, seal it, and that's ready to go. We'll do this for the next. Okay, so I have my 6 bottles of kombucha. You can see it's already starting to take on some of the color. It's starting to absorb some of the juices out of there. Now this is my new batch. This is the one that I put the SCOBY in, and it's ready to start fermenting. And once again, if you just started, if this is your first time, your first batch of kombucha, then this will already be filled up with water. It'll be sitting in a nice, warm, quiet place for a week. But since this is my second batch, I still have some kombucha left in the already fermented. So I just pour this in here. And now I'm going to top this off with water. Okay, so I top this off just about where the jar starts going in. That's as far up as I go. I put my piece of cloth on top. My Band-Aid to hold it in place. That just keeps the dust out. And now this is ready to be fermented. This is ready to go. Now, what do I do? That goes in a nice warm place. What do I do with these bottles? They're in a secondary fermentation. If I didn't do this, if I just stuck these in the refrigerator right now, they would still eventually get that flavor from the fruit, but they're not going to get the fizziness. So the second fermentation is where you get the fizziness, the bubbling. And so these are airtight. The bubbling, you know, was happening in here, the fermentation, but all of it was escaping through your cloth. So there was air able to escape. Now in these, no air is escaping, so you're building up a fermentation. These I actually set on my kitchen counter, and they will sit there for half a week. I know some people who let them sit there for an entire week, but Saturday is usually when I put my kombucha in the refrigerator. As soon as it gets cool, it stops fermenting and it's ready to drink. So that's what's going to happen with all this. Now, because I'm doing a second batch, now I will clean this bottle out, this jar, and I will do the same thing that I did with this one. So it's as simple as that. I'm going to fill all these bottles with my Second bottle, remember this has fermented an entire week already. So this one's ready to be bottled. This will all go in here. Whatever's left over in here goes in here. The SCOBY goes in here. So just like I did with the first batch, I'm just doing it with 2 batches all at once. So that's how you make kombucha. It's a lot of fun. It's real simple, real easy. I will warn you, be careful when opening some of them. For some reason, some of the citrus fruits, orange, pineapple, strawberry, I found too, they ferment a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, a little bit more. And so when you're opening a bottle, let me grab a bottle out of the refrigerator. Okay, this looks like an orange. Actually, I think this is an orange pineapple. Did you hear that? Okay, so you could possibly hear the air escaping. You saw the fizziness on top there. So, and you can see some of the bubbles rising. So this has fermented through the second fermentation. If you like more fermentation, if you like it fizzier, okay, leave it out on your counter a little bit longer. If you don't like as much, maybe once during the counter fermentation, the second fermentation, you know, just hold your hand on the top so it doesn't, you know, squirt all out. Just hold it on the top and just kind of burp it and put it in. You can see how all that fermentation is already going in there. So healthy for you, good for the environment. Make sure you buy organic ingredients. Make sure you keep all your equipment clean, and you know, have fun and enjoy and keep helping the environment. Visit wildspirit.org. If you'd like to make a donation to Wild Spirit, please visit our support page, and you can make a donation to Wild Spirit so that we can continue to make these videos and continue our podcasts. And have a great day. Keep helping the environment.